Sugar Sean, one of many, but Sugar Sean came out over the weekend and said that he is interested in Charles Oliveira versus Conor McGregor. Now, I'm singling out Sean, but I heard a beat like that repeatedly. I heard it from personal friends. I read about it in chat rooms. There was a headline somewhere. Somebody posted on Charles Oliveira's verified Twitter account that it's going to be Charles versus McGregor. I even spent a little bit of time looking into that because that's wild. I am the one that told all of you guys Charles doesn't want to fight Islam. I went as far as to tell you Charles is going to underperform against Benny because the winner of this takes on Islam, which is something that Charles doesn't want to do. Now, I also came out and told you I apologize. I will not speak about Charles like that anymore. But when his own Twitter account tries to take you in a direction opposite a world title fight, that's very interesting, and that's very damning, by the way. If Charles doesn't want to fight for the world championship, don't have him fight for the championship. I mean, like that's real easy math. Now, as I dig into that, I find out Charles does not operate his own Twitter account. Somebody else does. Somebody else posted it, and Charles was not even aware. This is the way the story goes. Fine. But as I read the thoughts of so many sharing different opponents for Conor, Nate Diaz and the return and everything's going to line up. I mean, I've heard this one to nauseum. I've heard about Islam. I've heard about Dustin and Justin. I've heard about the one that is planned with Chandler. I hear all these different things, and it sounds as though you're missing the entire point. If Conor McGregor wanted to fight, he would go and get in the pool so that he became eligible to get a license, which makes it eligible for somebody on the second floor of the UFC to send him what's known as a bout agreement. But this is the order. This is the order of events. And none of them have happened. It is not a matter that you're not on second base or you're on third base. It's not a matter of that. You haven't pulled up to the field before you even get out of your car and start looking for which diamond is assigned to your team. Like, he is nowhere in this process. Why do I say that? I say that because so many people that want to be clever keep trying to find another opponent for Conor. Conor is a Ferrari. Everybody wants a Ferrari. The Ferrari will turn everybody's head. You've accomplished nothing, and you've proven yourself as a makeshift matchmaker to be worthless. Anybody that keeps matching up Conor with a fight that you'd like to see, you couldn't get a wrong answer. It could be Conor versus your neighbor. Just so you understand. But you got one guy here that actually wants to fight. That's Michael Chandler, who has actually done everything possible to be able to fight. He's in the USADA pool. He's eligible to have a license. He could get a bout agreement today. And he also has emphasized that for a very big match, right, a guy in his position generally wants to stay in his lane of 155 pounds. Michael Chandler is still in pursuit of a world championship. Michael Chandler versus Islam is a very interesting match. But he stubbed his toe a couple of times, and he's made it very clear for big fights he's willing to go up to 170 pounds. So, I'm just bringing to your attention that when you're out there looking for opponents for Conor, you're looking at opponents for the wrong guy. Good job saying that Conor versus Charles is going to be exciting and do good business. Great job with that. Great job telling me Conor versus Nate Diaz is going to be good business. Wow, way to go. Conor is not in the pool. He does not have a license. He is not eligible to receive a bout agreement. Finding matches for Conor McGregor makes you a bit of a weirdo. There is a guy, however, who is here, who's done everything right, who was promised to fight. His name is Michael Chandler. It's becoming more and more obvious that Michael Chandler is not going to get the fight that he was promised, which is Conor. And at some point, what difference does it make? I'm owed a Conor fight. I was told that by the right people. If I did these steps, I would get a Conor fight. I went and did those steps. Great. We'll give you the Conor fight as soon as he fights again. In the meanwhile, what difference does it make if Chandler was to go out and have somebody else? Like, do you foresee in your mind a time that Conor McGregor could return that whoever that opponent is meaningful, right? Because we're not talking about Conor has to come back into a championship fight. That talk was out here for a while. At 70 or 55, if that's what the kid wanted, he could have it. But those talks aren't there now. Conor's not coming off of a win. Conor's not the number one contender. He's not the number one ranked guy. He's not coming off of a big finish. In fact, it's quite the opposite. He lost his last fight in a great big finish. I don't have his record in front of me, but off the top of my head, he lost his one before that too. That was Dustin Poirier. I don't know who the previous one, maybe that was the Cowboy match. Things went his way, but I'm just sharing for you. What would be different? What would be different a year from now? What would be different if Chandler has 2 or 3 matches, even if they all go terribly wrong? What would the difference be of putting Conor and Chandler in there in summer of next year? What difference would it make? I mean, is that what you really think the problem is? I mean, if you're being a Conor nuthugger and you're trying to be a cyber matchmaker, what is it about the fight against Nate that's going to change things and make Conor enter the pool? I mean, is it an opponent issue? He's just not happy with the opponent? That's what you're making believe. You think that Conor is going to be more motivated to fight Charles Oliveira? Conor could raise his hand today and say, I'll fight Charles Oliveira and I'll fight Nate. He's not in the pool. He will do none of those things. It's all talk. So if you're finding an opponent for somebody and you want to actually be helpful and give us an idea where we go, oh, wow, hey, that's great. Do it for Chandler. Find a guy for Chandler. Conor now cannot fight this year. Per the rules of USADA, he can't fight this year. But if you go get a calendar out and you look at the available dates, there's not something reasonable in the first quarter of next year. Not reasonable. You could make it happen, but not reasonably. You're pushed all the way out until May of next year by Conor not entering the pool to be able to be plugged in to one of 2 events, the November pay-per-view or the December pay-per-view. For Conor to not enter the pool to be able to go into one of those spots doesn't just kick the can until the next year. It kicks it till midway through next year. So at what point do we try to find an opponent for Michael Chandler? Now, you don't have to be Columbo here. I'll tell you exactly at what point. We do it once Chandler starts speaking up and getting people behind him, or as soon as the Ultimate Fighter wraps. The week that it wraps, we can then go in, and we will go into a discussion of what's next for Michael Chandler. Oh, by the way, you're not going to believe this, but it's not Conor McGregor. And those are the kinds of coincidences that you can't let happen on any side of this. You cannot let those coincidences happen. Withholding information and opportunity and money from a guy who did what he was asked to do, to hold it from, but to do it in that fashion, you can't do it. This is bad form. And we could clear this up and show good faith real easy, which is, it's looking a little bit strange. Conor has not done what Conor told us he would do. He has never entered the pool. Now, the other side of that is USADA, who has access to Conor, has never asked him for a sample. God, I hope that argument gets tested. That's a big deal. They could walk up to him right now and ask him. But here's what we're going to do. Because this is what Conor said, because of all the things that our partners and our fans and this wonderful opponent, Michael Chandler, over here have done, because of all these things, we are going to honor as close to this as we can. I'm going to do that by simply making this very clear. If Conor McGregor returns, he will return against Michael Chandler. If he never returns, he returns as nobody. If he returns, whether that's next year, the year after that, or down the road, he will return against Michael Chandler. If those words are said, everything goes away. But right now, this is ugly. And it's only ugly because it's so obvious. And it's so obvious, but it's getting over because you cyber matchmakers keep trying to book matches for the Ferrari, who isn't licensed, who doesn't want to fight. If you want to go out there, you want to be helpful, you want to put a great match together, go ahead and do it. Got two weight classes to choose from. Find somebody for Michael Chandler.